Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will analyze India's offensive against Pakistan at the UN HRC over Balochistan issue. Pakistan has been repeatedly ranting about Kashmir at international fora. It was now time for India to hit back. After Pakistan's rant at the UN Human Rights Commission, India gave it back, highlighting how the Pakistani state is carrying out enforced disappearances in Balochistan and is indulging in institutionalized discrimination and persecution against minorities, including Christians, Sikhs, and Hindus. How significant is this development? We will discuss this in the agenda today. We have with us retired diplomat Ambassador Deepak Vora and Mr. Jitendra Kumar Oja, who is an expert on geopolitical matters. But before we start our discussion, have a look at this small report.
Angered by Pakistan's repeated rant about Kashmir, India has hit back by highlighting to the world the atrocities being committed by the Pakistani state in Balochistan. It also flagged to the UN Human Rights Council the institutionalized discrimination and persecution being perpetrated against minorities including Christians, Sikhs and Hindus in Pakistan. While talking about Balochistan, India referred to enforced disappearances and repression carried out by Pakistani state agencies. It mentioned how the family of women activist and journalist Gululali Ismail, who is in self-imposed exile in the US, was facing retribution for raising human rights issues. India also mentioned about enforced disappearance of Idris Khattak, a prominent human rights activist who was formerly a consultant with Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. For decades, enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention and torture have been used as tools of coercion, India pointed out, adding that several Baloch human rights defenders have even met tragic death under mysterious circumstances while in exile. Pashtuns and Sindhis have continued to struggle against the systemic oppression and discrimination, it told the UN HRC. Minority Shias, Hazras and Ahmadiyya communities have also continued to face persecution, state-condoned violence and discrimination, it said. So Pakistan, as a country with one of the world's worst human rights record, would do well to put its own house in order before venturing to point a finger at India. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Vora and Mr. Oja. Welcome to the program, both of you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaul. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure is mine, sir. So I'll begin with you, Ambassador Vora, about diplomatic offensive by India at the UN HRC against Pakistan. So we know Pakistan has been ranting about Kashmir all the time. Now India has given it back, talking about enforced disappearances in Balochistan. So how do you see this development?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaul. And of course, I'm delighted to have Mr. Oja, who is an expert on this area. Of course, we've hit back. There's a time for it because all this while India was extremely, as a large, tolerant country, has been very patient, has followed diplomatic propriety as we always do, and we did not descend, nor have we now, to the gutter level language that Pakistan's leaders use. India doesn't belong to the gutter, Pakistan does. However, as they say, enough is enough, and we had to point out to the world what the reality is. Sir, you've referred to Balochistan. Would you give me a moment to inform the millions of people who are watching this program that Balochistan was actually independent from August 1947 to March 1948. Pakistan violated the standstill agreement with Kalat, which is the heart of Balochistan, as with Kashmir. And Kalat became the largest princely state to become part of Pakistan, in this case by force. In fact, the Anjuman-e-Ittihad at Balochistan was formed in 1931 to seek formal separation from British India. You know, the Cripps mission, you might have heard of it, Mr. Oja has, when they landed in India in 1942, the Khan of Kalat wrote to them saying that whatever happens in the future, we want an independent Khanate of Kalat. And that he supported the idea of Pakistan as long as Kalat remained independent. You know who argued his case, sir? Was a barrister called Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Jinnah.
The world is a strange place. He argued that Balochistan should be an independent state. Pakistan, sir, is a broken nation. I feel sorry for them. With a dysfunctional political system and a shaky judiciary, it still runs on rent-seeking and patronage without transparency. Sir,
Right.
it is a nation that lives in fear, clouded by primeval passions, primordial passions, ancient passions like envy, hubris, concepts of honor. Pakistan's radical Islam, sir, feeds on a ferocious medieval tribalism. This is what India
Right.
has exposed, and the world understands.
So, Mr. Oja, we have been discussing about that why India does not attack Pakistan over Balochistan issue and other atrocities being committed in Sindh and Gilgit-Baltistan and the WFP or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So now India has hit back. How do you see this?
I think this hit back has to be continued in every sphere. It's not that the language is of a gutter standard. All their activities are of a gutter standard. I've always maintained Pakistan is not a normal state. We should stop looking at Pakistan as any other state. Look, this was a syndicate propped up by a receding colonial power. They had their own agenda. They created a bunch of people and they started something very poisonous, the kind of religious hatred. At the same time, when West was fighting Nazi Germany, they revived this kind of Islamic radicalism. And we know Muhammad Ali Jinnah was not even a Muslim as such. So he did this thing. He acted as a pawn. And for a long time, because of our pacifist, humanist, liberal outlook as Hindus, whole world, even leave aside others, Russians, when they were persecuted in Iran, they took shelter in India. We have Christianity from 56 AD. So we do not need any certificate from the West who we are. Our liberal humanist ethos are far older than the West. And the West has been playing a game for a long time, till 2001. They have hyphenated us with Pakistan. They have been trying to act in a very patronizing way, as if there is some issue between India and Pakistan. It is high time we call bluff of Pakistan and we expose who they are. And West has created them. Now West has started paying a price. That Pakistani, this elite, has completely changed their patron. From West, now they have shifted their allegiance to China. And what they are doing. This is a kind of bunch of people, and even Pakistani establishment. I hold my very esteemed former senior colleague, Mr. Pura, very high esteem, and he has pointed it out, the duplicity that Muhammad Ali Jinnah did a case. So these two belong to no one. I think, as literally biggest civilization and beyond, we have moral responsibility to snuff out this deadly poison and deadly thing called this idea of Pakistan. Using all kinds of activities and this propaganda also. It is high time that Pakistan is humanized and people of Pakistan, good people in Pakistan, India only to look up to India. So I think our action has to be followed up with a severe crackdown, worldwide crackdown on organized crime, and things have to start from India. If required, I've always maintained we need to restructure our entire governance apparatus also if it is needed, because this threat from Pakistan is not that being threatened by government of Pakistan. It is the idea of Islamic radicalism. It is the idea of deception. It is the idea of treachery. It is the idea of every possible means and every possible tool. So that kind of threat, I think, has been very effectively alleged. I think it's a good step. We have to follow it up with others as well.
Right. Ambassador Vora, as you heard Mr. Oja, that we had to keep it up. And we had to call the bluff of Pakistan. But we have been kind of defensive. I have always been intrigued by this. We have been very defensive on J&K. Whenever J&K comes up, we say it's an inalienable part, integral part and all that. Why do we need to say that? Why are we so defensive?
There is no question, sir, and I'm not going to go into the history of what happened in 1947, 1948, the UN resolutions that were passed. The operative thing was that if there was to be a settlement, first there would be withdrawal, then there'd be a thinning down of forces.
No, first step was to be taken by Pakistan. It has never taken that.
That's what I'm saying. They had to withdraw their troops from there and the raiders, etc. So when the first step wasn't taken, the second and third become meaningless. So you are absolutely right. Sir, we've been talking about this because, again, India has been a responsible member of the international community. We never raised the Kashmir issue ourselves, sir. I've been in diplomacy now 48 years and counting. Whenever Pakistan raised it, we had to respond and educate global opinion. The result of that you see today. There is Kashmir fatigue in the world. People don't want to hear anything about it. They understand India's points of view on Kashmir. And I believe, sir, that we have done extremely well because after the abolition of the offending Article 370, you know that everybody in the world says, well, it's India's internal affair. To the extent that this gentleman, this buffoon who masquerades as the foreign minister of Pakistan, went around saying that, okay, if the Organization of Islamic Cooperation doesn't do anything, then we are going to have a special meeting of countries that support us on Kashmir. And the only two other jokers, one is a wannabe sultan, that character from Turkey. The other was a senile old fellow from Malaysia who lost his job in the process. And then this addict who claims to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So the whole thing of Kashmir, Pakistan has become a victim of its own delusions, sir. It's an albatross. The issue of Kashmir has become an albatross around its neck, which it is not able to get rid of. So we've been very correct. We have not made Kashmir the end-all and be-all of our existence. Kashmir is an Indian state like any other, and we take it in our stride. That is the difference. I believe this is a tribute to the sagacity of India's leadership, India's diplomats, and India's civil servants, and to people from the diplomatic intelligence community like Mr. Oja. Don't get too active, don't get hyperactive about Kashmir. Let it continue the way it is going. The world will see the truth. Sir, I've always said this to my friends, that below the Ashoka emblem on our national figure is the quote from the Mundaka Upanishad, Satyamev Jayate, truth triumphs. The world is seeing the truth today.
Yeah, world is seeing the truth, but I am just asking, why are we defensive? Mr. Oja, maybe, why have been we defensive all the time on Kashmir? When it comes to Kashmir, we take a position. Oh, no, it's not like that, it's not like that. Why should we defend? We should go on the offensive, ask Pakistan, vacate, take the first step mandated in the UN Security.
Sir, before Mr. Oja responds, let me just say, sir, that please remember, sir, that Kashmir is not the unifocal agenda of the Indian state. We have many other issues. Therefore, to get very, very aggressive about one issue diverts our energy. See what's happening in Pakistan. That fool, Imran Khan said every Pakistani should stand up after prayers on Friday and look at Kashmir. What has that achieved? The Pakistanis have become thinner in the process, but they haven't got them any close to getting Kashmir.
Yeah,
Sorry, Mr. Oja, forgive me.
Yes, not at all, sir. Not at all, sir.
Yeah.
I think we have been far too humanist, far too decent, far too liberal, and that is why we don't want to attack them. The fact is that we have discussed what has been the status and character of a state called Pakistan. It is not a normal state, Ajayji, and these people are hoodwinking people of Pakistan also in the name of Kashmir, because they have nothing to offer. Leave aside Hindu minorities and others. How are they teaching Shias? How are they teaching Ahmadiyyas? How are they teaching large number of Memons, Dawoodi Bohra and Memons? This is a small clique of crooks and criminals who have been ruling this thing. For a long time, they have been enjoying patronage of the powerful sections. I am not saying all Western nations. Of course, there were civilized and civil elements, the West, who were extremely receptive to Indian position. But within them, there was a very vicious lot who have been quoting and engaging Pakistan because they felt Islamic radicalism could be used as a strategic objective and tool. And as a civilizer, we have always been inward looking. I would say this is one thing I have repeatedly emphasized in my writing. For a defense also, you have to have an offensive strategy. Ajayji, we want to live with others, live and let live. Let live is not possible with rogues and criminals and this kind of snake-like element.
Right.
Because they have nothing to offer. They are going to bite you. They are going to attack you, whatever you do. So I think the best strategy is that, we have to pulverize their capacity, decimate their capacity to attack us. And I think in this process, we have to have two people on our side. One is, of course, our own Muslim, 99% of Indian Muslims or 90% plus Indian Muslims, I'm confident, have not been radicalized. There is no example of such a large number of Muslim population anywhere living, coexisting in peace with a non-Muslim community. It's not possible anywhere at all. We should be proud of our non-Muslim community and, of course, people of Kashmir. This is a small identity, pretty emotive issue, and Pakistan has been playing up with this. I think come out of this strategic cycle. For a long time, we were a rich and prosperous country. And whom, what legacy are they claiming? Pakistani. They are claiming legacy of Mamluk. Who are Mamluks? Mamluks were slaves. Kalpan or this Aibak and all these people, they were slaves were sold in the markets of West Asia. So, do you expect slaves to behave with civility? A person who acts in this manner shows what they are thinking and what their outlook is. Even if they have been here, they have only looted, plundered, and extracted people everywhere. I am not talking about Muslims at all. We have some amazing people in this sense. India has, changed the very course of Islam. The Sufi Islam has no parallel anywhere in the world. So, they have brought in the perverse Turkic Mamluk psyche here. They are still driven by that. This is a smart way. I think in today's world, even though this propaganda is an instrument for, we have to be very careful that this kind of instrument for sustaining that, we have to completely destroy it in the next 5-10 years. And I think Pakistani people should also be looking forward to stronger leadership of India in this part of the world and beyond, because that is what is going to salvage them. You know that the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, one is running around in UK. Once one Prime Minister Irani's son was kidnapped, and he has been running around in Pakistan, and he has nowhere to go. And what happened with Musharraf, a former army chief, also this kind of criminalized cabal, which is there. Do you expect sympathy from them? I think it is too naive on our part. We should stop being naive, and we should be realistic. This is a war we are fighting. And the only objective of fighting war is to secure a comprehensive victory, Ajay.
Right. Ambassador Vora, you heard Mr. Oja, he was clear-cut strategy, but you have been a diplomat. Again, I will go back to the same Kashmir rant by Pakistan, about which we get defensive. I mean, yesterday Imran Khan was in Sri Lanka. Again, he mentioned about the narrative. I'm talking about narrative, that India needs to implement the UN Security Council resolution. But why?
He's a shameless character.
No, he is shameless, but they are spreading that narrative that India is not implementing, where the fact is that Pakistan has not taken the first step. So we have to do that.
Absolutely.
So we have to set the record straight. Why don't we do that?
I'll just say one thing. I am sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, just 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We should stop reacting, and we should completely ignore it, and our agenda should be de-radicalizing Pakistan, not pay any attention at all, and tell everyone how dangerous this cabal is in Pakistan. It is a threat to its own people. Can it do good to anyone else? Sorry, sir. I'm finished.
Yeah, Ambassador Vora, now.
Now, I couldn't agree more with my distinguished colleague. You know, when you pay attention to a clown or a thief or a fool, it animates him, it encourages him. When you ignore him, it decimates him, because we are not responding. This is a tactic that we have perfected. Many countries have used it. They have used it to decimate, to destroy the self-esteem of the opponent, saying this kind of ranting, sir, which you refer to, is beneath contempt. May I also, sir, if you give me a moment, I don't know if you were going to talk about this recent tweet by a Pakistani lawmaker that was offensive to Hindus. Were you going to talk about this issue also, that he has been forced to delete something?
That demeaning of Hindus continues there. That I don't think that's I'm taking cognizance. I saw that.
Yeah. You know, sir, it's just that I'm sad and angry, even cynically amused, but I'm not surprised. As I've been observing Pakistan's ability to act consistently against its own interests.
But they don't demean only Hindus. They demean even Ahmadi Muslims also, Sunnis also, Shias.
You're absolutely right. If Barbara Tuchman, who was a friend of mine when I was posted in Washington in the early 80s, she were alive and she could update her seminal book of 1984, The March of Folly, how governments consistently act against their own interests, the newest chapter would be on Pakistan. So I just wanted to make a point.
Yeah.
You might have heard of a character called Karl Marx. He was a German sociologist and economic theorist. And he said something very interesting. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. It's a palliative against suffering and exploitation. And when people are hungry and have nothing to look forward to, it gives them some pleasant illusions that gives them the strength to carry on, sir. This is what Pakistan has done with a beautiful religion called Islam. In its essence, They have perverted it, they have corrupted it, and they are feeding it to their people. We have competitive Islamic radicalism in Pakistan with the so-called the selected prime minister, whatever, that cricket player who survives on drugs. Now he seems to be the leader of the Islamic world. May I also tell the millions of people watching the show, sir, I think it was in 48 or 49 that Mr. Jinnah had visited Egypt during the time of King Farouk and gave him a great briefing on how Pakistan was created on the basis of religion and how religion and Islam would survive there. And when that entire briefing was over, apparently, so I'm told, I've seen in some dispatches, the king asked one of his advisors, please tell me, was Islam invented in Pakistan? But that's the kind of disdain these people, even from Islamic countries, have for Pakistan.
No, they have also, Mr. Oja, I'll come to you. Now, Pakistan has also found another Islamic ally called Turkey. So how do you see that lackey? Turkey has now become a lackey of Pakistan.
Not really. Turkey, this gentleman is having grand aspirations to become a Khalifa. And Kamal Atatürk, he was one of the most modern and secular leaders who completely took Turkey on a different course. He has reversed it. Look, right. I will slightly not disagree, add to what Karl Marx he was quoted. Sir, at young age, I was very much inspired by Marx. I read Last Capital at the age of 30. And
we were all inspired.
So, what happens, religion has become used as a very important, because whatever teachings of Holy Prophet is upon him, of Islam, he taught something entirely different, and he was very apprehensive that his teachings are going to be abused. And exactly it happened. All the evils, all the wrong things of this society, this Turkic and Arab society, tribal society, which he was opposing, those were brought into it, the kind of, identity-driven issues. So, what Turkey is trying to do, he's taking Turkey on path of destruction. And again, I would say, Turkey are NATO. Why NATO leadership is quiet in Turkey? Why are not they taking a strong action against him? Because a lot of damage would have been done. I feel, with all respect to countries, particularly the most powerful democracy, it has not spoken in one voice on a large number of issues. In the name of strategic objectives, a section within that country, they have been aligning with all kinds of wrong people. And this is how Turkey is going ahead and Pakistan again. Otherwise, there's nothing called Pakistan. This is an artificial creation, an invention created by a colonial power, and they felt that they could use this creation for purpose what? For purposes of containing Soviet Russia for their own great game. Now you see how this poison has grown and evolved and is threatening everyone. And same thing is happening with Turkey. I think we have to take a stronger proactive role, both diplomatically, because India of 2001, India of 2011, very different from India of 2021. We have to have a much stronger global role, but that stronger global role, JG, is not possible unless until, and sorry, I hope Ambassador Pura does not take offense, we have restructured our institutions befitting a powerful civilization and a powerful global state. And there is no second option to that. And this diplomatic work, etc., fine. Let's have junior level diplomat, not Imran Khan or else. But we have to go first and teach not only Pakistan, but the rest of the world in a very polite and this way, what India is all about. Because I would believe entire security and stability of the world depends to a great extent on India and not United States of America, because we are facing two most hostile, fake, authoritarian, narrow-minded states of our neighborhood. So we have to contain those things, and we have to inspire them also. And in this process, these kind of statements and this kind of persecution which Pakistan is committing on its own, I am sure even Pakistan will be under pressure. If China will be under pressure, they will be forced to be more civil and civilized. Stability, etc., does not come from words alone. It has to be in deed. And this is where I think, and I see a much stronger role for India. Not only see a role for India, but I call for a much stronger role from my country.
Right. Ambassador Vora, I'll come to you. I think we're short of time, but what I guess Mr. Oja was suggesting is that we need to reshape our diplomatic corps. And
not diplomatic, sorry, all corps.
All corps.
Not diplomatic.
Including diplomatic corps. What do you say?
I find it difficult to disagree with Mr. Oja, except on this. Our diplomats are the best in the world. Don't include me among
No,
them.
but he is saying that our diplomats are very shy and maybe defensive. We had to go.
No, I'm sorry. I am not saying that.
I said suggesting. I said you are suggesting. You are suggesting
You know,
that.
sir,
I'm saying institutions.
let me
We have some of the most brilliant people in our institution. This is what I'm saying. We have some of the most brilliant people in all our institutions. Our institutions need to be more active because the challenges we are facing, no other country faces that. So we have to harness exceptional talent that we have in much stronger and sturdier institutions. What I mean.
Right.
I don't question. We have some finest people in our
do I still have
services also.
Ambassador Bora will answer that. Respond to that.
You know, let me put it to you like this. Pakistan keeps acting as though it is on death row. Now, in the years following 9/11, sir, you will remember that the world has come to appreciate even more the significance of religious and ethnic and communitarian intolerance and the damage that it can cause to human civilization as we know it. Look, we as a civilization, from the very beginning, we celebrate diversity. We don't suppress it. So we are not a melting pot. We are a salad bowl in which each ingredient retains its unique and special flavor, while that magnificent whole is called Bharat. Now, we've seen lately, sir, how minority issues tend to hog international headlines. Some misinformed or malicious Western media representatives have been calling the ongoing farmer protests in India as an example of India's persecution of its minorities. Happy birthday! What are these guys talking about? Parallelly, there is also growing concern at Pakistan's treatment of and scorn, as Mr. Oja said, for its religious minorities, prompting the Pakistani establishment to try and shift the spotlight to other countries like India. But what is happening is the law of unintended consequences taught to me by my professor in the US, Robert Merton, is kicking in. This thing that Pakistan is saying minority is coming back increasingly to haunt Pakistan.
Right.
The world talks about religious discrimination in Pakistan, human rights violations, Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, Shias, Ahmadiyas, amongst other religious minorities facing discrimination, even subjected to violence. So may I end by quoting the second Prime Minister of Pakistan, a character called Khwaja Nizamuddin, just to prove that religious discrimination, intolerance is not new in Pakistan. Second Prime Minister, here is what he said. I do not agree that religion is a private affair of the individual, nor do I agree that in an Islamic state, every citizen has identical rights. Muslims are above all else. What kind of a lunatic was this man?
Right.
You answer the question.
That is the entire system.
May I just say one sentence?
Yeah, please.
You know, a lot of this propaganda about India which is coming out is not innocent propaganda. We have mentioned program many times that this organized crime network, global this thing, they have very cohesive for their survival. And this may be a motivated propaganda, there is no doubt about it. But I feel instead of targeting one or two Indian individuals, we have to focus on these larger networks and we have to destroy them.
Yeah, sure. So we conclude
That's
on that.
what APN News is doing. That's what the agenda is doing. Thank you, Mr. Kaur.
That is our agenda, yeah. Thank you both of you for participating. We will end on
Always
this note.
an honor to be.
My pleasure.
Always a privilege to learn from you, Mr.
Thank you, sir. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.